We'll be starting up here in about a little over a minute. Okay, it's 9 o'clock, but we'll give folks another 15, 20 seconds to log in, and then we'll get started. Okay, so good morning. My name is David Orr. I'm the director here with New York LTAP, the Corner Local Roads program. I want to welcome you to our first webinar for 2023. I got the 23 behind me in the background there. So today's webinar is about highway department duties and responsibilities. I'm hoping some folks who are brand new, started on the job on the 1st, might log in. Maybe we know a few folks got elected, maybe even got appointed. We'll see. Marty Roberts is our circuit rider instructor today. Just a couple of brief updates. Go to the next slide for me, Marty. I know you'll get control here in a sec. Is it moving for you, Marty?
Is what it, David?
Go to the next slide.
Oh.
So just so you know, audio settings, if you've got an issue with sound or something, put them in the lower left. The chat pod is not enabled for you to put things in, but we do ask you to open that up because we'll put in there links to our workshop manual that goes along with this webinar, running your highway departments. We'll put in any links to like the poll access. You could type the thing you see, or you can actually just open up the chat pod and you can actually click on it directly to be able to answer some of the polls that we're going to ask you. We may ask you to raise your hand. The Q&A is available, so put your questions in the Q&A, and myself, or better yet, Amanda and Jody, who are watching in the background and doing all the hard work because my hands are free. We'll be monitoring that. Ask any questions you've got, everything from sound issues to questions that Marty raises at you that you just have any questions about. With that, next slide, we'll do Marty's little bio real quick. He was 38 plus years with the town of Reading over in Schuyler County. Beautiful view of looking along the lake there. If you've never been in the town of Reading. He was 15 years as the highway superintendent, and then served on the town superintendent's executive committee for 11 years, was the president in 2014. He's been teaching with us since 2016. He currently does a running your highway department workshop, and he's also helping develop a new legal liability workshop we'll be rolling out this spring. We did a preview session for that workshop in December. And so with that, Marty, I'm going to let you go ahead and get started. And I'll go dark, but I'll pop my head back in if there's any questions that we need to have answered.
Okay, thanks, David. So good morning, everyone. I hope everyone had a good New Year's. The holiday season was good. I think about our friends in Western and Northern New York with all the snow that they were faced with, and I hope everybody got through that well. I mean, I know it wasn't easy, but I'm sure that it was a trying situation. I've talked to some of my friends from up north, and they said it was very, very difficult, but they made it through well. So if you get a chance, give me an idea of what you guys do. What do you work for the town, the county, city, village, tribal, private? or maybe just the weekend. And what's your job? Are you an administrator, a highway or superintendent, DPW, an engineer? There's an engineer, good. Field crew, board member, or none of the above. That's okay. And if you're not,
somebody put in town, by the way, in the Q&A, Marty,
oh, they did. Okay.
for the previous question.
Okay. All right. There you go. So, yeah. I know not probably everybody is being involved in the questions, but it gives me an idea of who I'm teaching to. I always do this when I'm doing the Running Your Highway program workshop, so that I have an idea of who I'm trying to help.
And we got a field crew person listed in the Q&A.
Okay, good.
So we've got quite a range of folks.
That's a very good thing. Sure,
And,
try not to miss anyone.
Yeah, and as y'all can see, for some reason the percentages aren't calculating. We don't know why. They switched their charts on us literally on the 1st, so we're learning these new charts as well. So I'd say you got mostly highway superintendents and engineers today, Marty.
Okay,
A couple
very
of
good.
at least one field crew person, and then a couple of others. Okay.
All right. Why I know why I won't advance here for me. How long have you been in your current position? Oh, there's a 1 year. That's good. Less than 1 year. 3 to 5. Well, what I hope to do today is try to help, especially the people that haven't been here for a long time or haven't been in that position for a long time, try to help them avoid the pitfalls that sometimes go with things, learning things the hard way. And that's kind of what I do when I teach Running Your Highway. But there are people that have been there for a number of years that aren't really aware of things that they should be doing to make themselves safer and minimize their liability and their exposure to things that may not be good for their career. So that's what my goal is. I try to make sure that people do the best that they can.
So by the way, you had a 23 in the Q&A on the last question. So
okay. So where are you from? I'll be able to see this. Oh, somebody's from down on the island. More than one.
People.
Nice.
We got a couple in Rochester,
Mm-hmm.
Ithaca, right in Rockland County.
Well, it's good to see that we're kind of all over the state. I don't see any in the North Country yet, but that doesn't mean you're not there. I know how many people are on the webinar, and there are not nearly as many people that put their little green dot on there. So I'm sure you're there, and that's quite. So what are some of your departmental responsibilities? Just type that in there and give me an idea. If you're a superintendent and that kind of thing, and what you do, or if you're an administrator, street design, absolutely. Maintenance. Stormwater, good to see that.
You got street maintenance added in there too, Marty.
Yeah, well, so if it's a street maintenance things, I'm guessing maybe we have some village people here as well. That's a good thing. I hope that we can assist you guys as much. I mean, I try really hard in my, not having been in the DPW business, I had a lot of the duties of DPW because we had sewer and water in our town, but so I have a basic understanding of it, but the rules for villages differ somewhat. Russian leaf collection, I know there are a lot of towns that do that as well. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things that you guys are responsible for. A lot of people wear big hats to do this job. There are a lot of things you're responsible for. You may have bridges. If you're a county person, you may have bridges. You may have bridges if you're a town person. But there are a lot of things that you have a responsibility for. They all carry some liability, and we're going to try to help you today understand the best way to avoid some of those things. So your duties and responsibility, records, and I put down records because I have to stress that this is probably the number one thing that you should be working on. I mean, if you're good at it, and you get an attaboy here. Highway right of way, responsible for notice. We'll talk about that. Payrolls and vouchers. Restricting and closing roads. I have some information that some may or may not know about that. Liability and risk, and annual reports. So on day one, make sure if you're keeping good records, as I said, keep up the good work. It probably is the number one thing to help you minimize your liability. It never goes away, but minimize it. Make sure that you keep records for your personnel, your highway employee. Keep good records on them. You have to keep records for the payrolls and those sort of things, and make sure you keep records of what goes on during the day. Every day, if it's make sure you document the weather. If you've had any issues, if there's been crashes in the town, make sure that you keep track of where they were and try to document what you saw or what you did. And maybe you didn't see them, but make sure that you're aware of what goes on in the town. Do your road checks. I did mine on Mondays and Wednesdays. Did half the town on Mondays and half the town on Wednesdays. And if you can't do it personally, make sure that you have somebody doing that for you, and make sure that they document that stuff and pass it on to you so that you can keep them as your records. Make sure that they're kept in some sort of a format that's the same. Make sure that you don't keep them haphazardly, and there are rules as to how long you keep records, and the comptroller has a whole list of how long each individual record has to be kept, and I suggest that you probably go on their website and find out just how long those are. So if you're new to the superintendent's office, for the first 90 days, you have to log your hours for the New York State retirement system. It doesn't have to be in extreme detail, but tell them about how many hours you spent doing whatever it is you did during the day, and you have to keep those for the first 90 days. After the first year, you don't have to do it again, but you have to reconfirm to your town or to your clerk. I would assume it's any clerk, whether it's a village clerk or town clerk or a county, I would assume has to do it. Any official has to do this, because at one point apparently there were people that were getting big retirement and nobody knew how many hours they were actually working. I think somebody said it had something to do with the judicial department, and I'm not really sure, but that's kind of what I heard. But after the first year, you can just say my duties and hours haven't changed significantly from last year's, and you're good to go. So after the first of the year, starting right now, you're going to have to, and if you haven't appointed your deputy highway superintendent on the town side, I suggest you get that done now. And if you're having the same one you've had in years past, just make sure you reappoint him, make sure he's in that position and there's record of it, or he or she, unless I don't want to be gender specific there, but whoever your deputy highway superintendent is, I would assume that, make sure that that's done right away. Your 284 agreement. Your town guy, make sure that that's in place. It really and truly is it's a log of what you're planning on spending your money on in the coming year, which projects, how much you're going to spend, and you have to have board approval for these things, and they'll sign off, you sign off. And at that point, you can start spending money if you're hauling stone for projects or any of those kind of things. You can go ahead and start expending those funds. Keep in mind, your 284 agreement is not it's not a cast in stone document. If things change, you can update, you can reconfigure your agreement and get board approval, and you can change it. We had a couple major flooding events in our town a couple years before I retired, and we changed ours 7 times that year, just so that we were in compliance with the law, and we got done what we needed to get done. So make sure that that's in place. So you're responsible for managing all kinds of things on the highway, drainage, bridges and culverts, ditches, storm sewers, road surface, potholes, traffic marking, signage. All of those things are a big job. It's a tough balancing act, and if you're new to the position, it's a lot. And part of that management is making a plan as to how all that's going to happen. There are all kinds of hazards: trees, fixed objects, utilities, snow and ice. Those are all things that are part of what you do, and as you make a plan on doing those kind of things, it will make it easier for you. So when we talk about notice, towns, counties, villages, all are afforded some protection for things that they don't know about. So if you don't know about something and it affects someone in the form of a crash or something like that, if there was no actual notice, which is written notice, you have some protection. You say, well, they didn't know what you didn't know. There is a local law that goes along with that has to be passed by the boards that gives you the full protection. And you might want to check to make sure that that's been done in your municipality. Constructive notice is something that you should have known. You drive by the same pothole going to your shop every morning from your house to your shop, and you don't do something about it, and somebody comes along and bends a rim or blows a tire in it. It's kind of constructive notice. If you've driven by it enough times going to work, you should have known it was there. Or constructive notice might be something that you caused the issue. You left something along the side of the road and somebody hit it. If there was a pile of gravel or something there, that really is constructive notice as well. Because if you created the hazard, you would have known about it. The other notice is law enforcement. If law enforcement calls you and makes you aware of an issue or a hazard, it's notice. You want to make sure that you get after that. When you get actual notice, or the law enforcement calls you, you want to make sure you get after those. They have to be logged. The clerk will keep track of them in a separate file. Make sure when you get that notice, you make whatever necessary repairs. It could be repairs, or you can maybe make a A temporary repair, or you can guard the situation so that people can't be involved in whatever the hazard is. But make sure that when you get the notice that you make those corrections, and make sure you document what you've done and include that with the notice. Payrolls and vouchers. You're responsible for employees' time and time off records. Make sure you keep good records of those things. They're going to be something that have to be kept for a specific amount of time, and you can find that on the website as well. You're responsible for vouchers. Some people use purchase orders, but when you sign that voucher, and you will have to sign that voucher as a town person, you're saying that you received the goods or services that you're going to pay for, and make sure that you did. I mean, don't be paying things before you get them. That's just, first of all, it's illegal, and it's one of those things that you could get yourself in a real bunch of trouble for. You may have someone that fills the vouchers out for you, but you're ultimately responsible for signing. So, bids. Make sure that you know your procurement policy in your town, what your threshold is for what you have, where you have to go to bid. Make sure you know at what point you have to get quotes for things. Make sure you keep track of all those things. I had written, even when I got quotes, they were always written. Make sure that you can justify why you spent taxpayers' money. And understand your procurement policy. Know what the threshold is that you can spend money without getting board approval. Most places it's enough so that you can go to your day-to-day stuff without too much issue. Some places it's very, very limited. They may have had issues in the past, as I've taught running your highway department across the state. There are some that can't spend more than $5 without having approval, which is really ties your hands. Restricting and closing roads. You can temporarily close roads for construction or maybe an emergency. Highway superintendents have that authority, and county highway superintendents have that authority. Long-term requires the chief operating officer of the town or the county for a long-term closure. Make sure you understand that. The year we had those flooding operations, at the end of the first day, we had 7 roads that were closed long-term. I couldn't do that. That was a superintendent or the supervisor's responsibility. Make sure you understand how that works. Your Office of Town Highway Superintendent, the Red Book, will help you assist you with that information. Know your responsibility. Give proper notification to the people that are affected by it. It could be emergency management people, could be schools, could be the residents of the road. Make sure if you have to detour something for a long time that you put up official and legal detours, so that if emergency management have to send an ambulance or that sort of thing to somewhere, they make sure they know how to get there, because there could be a liability involved with that. Liability and risk. You can manage your liability, you can't eliminate it. You got to do the best you can to make sure that you keep a sharp eye out for things that could cause you issues. Equipment has a certain amount of liability. Make sure that if you're making repairs to the equipment, service the equipment, make sure that's all documented. Because if it comes to the point where it's involved in a crash or some sort of an incident, those are the kind of things that are going to be foiled. They're going to want to know what you've done to that truck and why it couldn't stop in a specific amount of time. Make sure that you document when those brakes were adjusted and all those sort of things. Make sure your employees are aware of keeping those records. Make sure that if you have your own specific repair personnel, they have a specific department that does that. make sure that they're aware of those kind of things. Make sure that they're aware of, if they see something, make sure they say something to you or to one of their supervisors. If you see a tree or something that shows some signs of distress or disease, make sure that they make you aware of that so that it doesn't come down in the road, and it's much easier to manage that stuff on a good day than it is in the middle of a storm or in the middle of the night. Make sure that you train your employees to, if they see something, to say something. The right of way has its own list of liabilities. Make sure that when you make improvements to the highway, make sure you document why you're making those improvements and what those improvements are. Maybe it's guide rail where it hasn't been before, or maybe it's you're erecting a new sign, and make sure that it's done properly with the proper breakaway features and where it's located, and do the very best you can to manage those things. And public interactions. I can't stress this enough. Make sure that you're aware of how you act in public and how you interact with your constituents or just the general public on the highways. Everybody's got a cell phone in their pocket, and if you get recorded doing something, and you don't always know that you're getting recorded either, so make sure that you're aware. If things become heated, to the point where you think that you can't do it in a civil way, just walk away from it. Kick it up the hill. I mean, make sure your employees understand this as well. Don't get into any kind of verbal or physical altercation with people. It could be a career ender, or it could be very costly to the municipality. So you're responsible for annual reports, state contracts. I'm sure the fuel and salt things are getting ready to come up. Make sure that you do those in a timely fashion, because if you miss them, you may not be able to get in on the better price that are allowed with those. The road mileage reports for chips have to be done. Make sure that you do them in a timely fashion. Sign inspections twice a year, spring and fall. Make sure that and as your guys are out this winter, make sure you have them keep an eye on the reflectivity of signs while they're out there in the snowplows. Can you see them? Are they dull? Are they bright enough so that you can see? Make sure that it wouldn't be a bad idea when they're out, if one of your guys just takes the time to document the ones that aren't as visible as they should be. As the population grows older, signs are, and they're the number one litigated thing in municipal actions. Make sure that you pay special attention to signs. Your machinery inventory, September for the towns. Make sure that you get those things in place. The SH 900, it's a sickness and accident report that has to be done for safety and health through PESH. Make sure that that's done and is posted in a conspicuous place in your shop, your lunchroom, somewhere, wherever all of your other federal guidelines are all posted. Make sure that that's taken care of. Personnel policies. Take the time first of the year, make sure you review your personnel policies, whatever they may include. They may include time off and maybe your health insurance things and you have cell phone policies. Do you have cell phone policies? When can they use them? What can they be used for on duty? It could be a liability issue. If somebody's doing Facebook or Instagram while they're driving a 57,000-pound 10-wheeler, it's a recipe for disaster. I'm hoping that nobody's doing that, but I'm just telling you, traveling across the country teaching, I see people that are way too involved in screens while they're driving, and it's not a good thing. So it can wait until you get a break or you get lunch or that sort of thing. But review your personnel policies. First of the year, start with a clean slate And if it's all good, that's fine. And if it isn't, maybe it's time to look at them. Just make sure your personnel policies aren't in direct conflict with a binding labor agreement, but take the time to look at them. Premature failures, wrong equipment, overworked, lack of maintenance, poor operation, age. These are the reasons why things go wrong with your equipment. Take the time to train your people well. Make sure you size equipment as it needs to be. Make sure they're taking care of things. Grease is way cheaper than parts. My grandfather always told me that. Make sure that the people that are operating things know how to do it, and they're not acting irresponsibly in them. And this could be equipment, or this could be trucks, or take the time. Make sure people are trained well. Smart people are better. And then there's accidents. Sometimes it happens. It's just part of it. We can't always do everything absolutely perfect, but we can really try. Make sure you guys understand that. Make sure that they're aware of what they do. Budget development. You're responsible for account funds, ledger codes, object codes. General is A. DA and DB are town highway. DB is if the town has a village in it as well. D and DM is county highway. H is capital projects. If you're new, it's one of the things I struggled with when I first started. Our bookkeeper she was very good at what she did, but she wasn't a great teacher. So it took me a bit. I had to create a cheat sheet for myself so that when I was filling out vouchers, I knew exactly where the money was going to go to. So it might be a worthwhile thing to at least the very most commonly used funds, you might want to make a cheat sheet as well. Object codes, personnel is 1.1, equipment is 0.2, contractual 0.4, debt principal 6, debt interest 7, and employee benefits is 8. What a ledger code do you think that might be? Anybody got any idea? It's a sign, obviously. So it's a 3310. And going back to that, you do understand that the supervisor in the town is responsible. It's an A code, so the supervisor is responsible for that fund. You probably are going to do the implementation of erecting the signs and purchasing the signs, but he's ultimately going to pay for those out of the general fund. Which ledger code do you think that is? What account? Yeah, it could be a 5112 or 5110 repair, or it could be it's possible that it's let's see where to go. It could be a 5120, could be a bridge because it's over 5 foot in diameter, so it may be considered a bridge just because of the size of it. What do you think that one is? 5110. Could be a 5112. Single surface street seal coats are now considered capital project under CHIPS. Could very well be. Be aware of those things. Be aware of what accounts you would bill those to. How about mowing the town hall? If the town is mowing the town hall, A51 30.32. So this is something the supervisor is responsible for. If your highway guys are mowing the town hall, make sure those hours that they spend doing that are billed to the correct fund. If they're mowing the town hall and you're paying them out of highway, it's something that somebody could bring up. Make sure that you understand where the money's coming from and where the money's being spent. Budget estimates. Zero-based budgeting, historical averaging, cost of living increases, life cycle planning. I use the historical averaging in our town. A zero-based budget is a very difficult thing to do. If you're new to the thing and you want to create a new budget, and if you're new, you're living with a budget that was created for you last fall, and you're going to have to deal with it. But when you start budgeting again, start your budget for it's coming up on next September, or villages are actually getting closer to it right now. They're going to start preparing for it. Maybe pick one line item and start from zero and see what it's going to take you to run that line, that section for the next year. I wouldn't try to start over unless you're a real bean counter. It's a lot. We use historical averaging. I didn't really add a cost of living. We used the CPI. And that's kind of the thing that sort of is more of in line with what we do. Consumer price index, and fuels, and those kind of things are the thing that probably affect us more. So we would take a historical average and add maybe, in this last year, the CPI was significant. Will you be able to include that in your budget? Well, you kind of got to hope so, because I would think that, I know the price of fuel has come down some, but it's still, historically high. And those are the kind of things that are going to affect whether you're going to be able to make it through the year or not. You can waste all of your money in a very short amount of time when the price of fuel doubles from what it was in the prior year when the budget was put together. Budget cycles. Your town or county, T-minus 3 months. The budget department, T-minus 2 months. The tentative budget, T-minus 1.5 months. The public hearing, T-minus 1 month. You adopt the final budget. We did ours the first board meeting after election day, and you adopt the final budget. And 1st of January, you start the fiscal year. Villages start theirs kind of off cycle with us. They start theirs the 1st of July, I believe. And but it all starts. If you're a village guy 3 months out, you're gonna want to start putting that budget together. I would encourage you to start even before that. Make sure you start as you're going on. If you've spent more than you normally would spend in a short amount of time, maybe buying fuel, those kind of things. Maybe those are the kind of things you want to make note of, so that when you start preparing your budget, you're aware of it. Manage the infrastructure. Scheduling work, determine the work to be needed, plan activities. When I say plan, make sure that planning is a big part of it. You're going to calculate the cost, and you're going to implement whatever the project might be. Don't be like these silly guys. Don't get all these ballasters in there and then have no way to get the truck out. Schedule work. You're going to plan. You're going to mobilize. You're going to build whatever the project is. You're going to clean up, and you're going to evaluate what you did. How could you have done it better? And those plannings, there's a lot to it. What are you going to do before you even mobilize? What have you got to do? Do you have to call Big Safe New York? Do you have to notify emergency management? Do you have to notify the people that are going to be affected by the project? These are all part of it. And make sure that you understand that. So typical process, going to inventory what you're going to need, conditions, repairs, and prioritization. Do the things that you need to do as you should do it. The right thing at the right time is exactly what you should be doing. Don't necessarily spend all your money on the worst road you have in your municipality. Spend your money keeping your good roads good, and then whatever's left, you work on that road. Everyone has that road. I had it, and I'm sure that everyone does. But don't spend all of the money trying to make that bad road good and let the rest of them go downhill because of it. And implement it. Make sure you have an inventory of your roads, bridges and culverts, signs, guide rail equipment, and miscellaneous items. Make sure that you are aware of what you have. Yeah, I can't stress this enough. I know at one time that there was a program that they were going to make sure that they counted everything. I don't know that it ever came to pass on a grand scale, but bigger departments kind of know what they have. How many signs? Does anybody know how many signs they have? How many how many culverts do you have in your town? You know how much equipment you have because you have to fill out a machinery inventory, but make sure that you know what you have, because all of that stuff has to be replaced at some point. There should be a replacement schedule for everything that you have. And understand the condition of things. You can't be everywhere at once. And in this situation, obviously, there was a sinkhole there for whether a culvert failed or what it was, but make sure that you're aware. Prioritize and plan. And I keep saying this, plans. You've heard me say plans a number of times. Planning is key to a successful operation. So if you're going to put things out for bids, and we talked about bids earlier, make sure you have a good specification. Good specification provides clear, easy to understand information to the bidder to guarantee the municipality gets what they want for it, or get what they want for at a reasonable price. Make sure that you ask for what you want. Don't leave any of it up to chance, because if you omit something and the bids come out and it isn't exactly what you want because you didn't ask for it, then it's kind of on you, you know. And what's even more important than that, when you accept the bid and that information is in there, make sure that people give you what they contracted to do. Make sure that that's part of it as well. Purchasing. We talked about direct purchases. How much can you spend without kind of any approval at all? Our town, I could spend up to 10 grand. Like I said, some places up north could spend $5. It's make sure that you understand what direct purchases, your limits under your procurement policy are. How much for an oral quote? How much do you need to 2 oral quotes? Make sure you write them down. The internet will allow you at least one. I mean, almost anything can be purchased on the internet, so you can print that off and make sure that you know what the price of that is. I mean, it might be the best value. You can buy a hydraulic hose on Amazon and have it shipped to you, or you can go down to CarQuest and have them make you one. If there isn't a significant difference in there, well, it could be the best value because of, you know, when it's available. Make sure you justify all of that stuff when you buy things. Written quotes. What's the threshold for written quotes? Make sure you understand that. Make sure you know. Bids, and there are exceptions. One of the exceptions is if it's a town-to-town transfer, or town to a county transfer, or town to a village transfer, as long as it's done within a municipality, you don't have to go to bid. And the other exception is professional services. If you have to use an engineering firm for things, you don't have to go to bid. If you've had the same engineering firm for multiple projects and you're satisfied with them, that is the exception there. Snow and ice control. Big part of what you do, especially in New York. As we saw just short time ago in Western New York and Northern New York, where I live, we've had maybe 6 or 7 inches of snow. It's been almost a non-year here. But if you lived where the snow traditionally blows with the lake effect, it could be a lot. And I hope everybody has a winter maintenance policy. It details what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and to what extent you're going to do it, what time you're going to do it. I see some people have put down no, and I have to wonder why. As long as you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, every time you have an event, we go out, we start out at 3:00 in the morning and we make the first round, and when the snow reaches a certain depth, then we start plowing and all those things. If you do the same thing every event, why wouldn't you write it down? Because if you don't write it down and something happens, there's going to be a judge or a jury somewhere is going to decide what your winter maintenance policy would be. Oh, so you have bare roads policy and you weren't following that. Well, no, we don't have a bare roads policy. We worked until 8 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night. And then we start again at 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, where's that? Where's that written down? Well, we didn't write it down. That's just what we do. Well, it says, I don't think that's what your policy is. I suggest, I got to tell you right now, get a winter maintenance policy. It'll save you liability in the long run. I can't encourage you enough. Somebody said, well, what if we don't do it that way one time? Well, make sure that you leave yourself an out. So if there's mechanical failure or in the event of an ice storm where you may have to go out more often, or you may have to work around the clock in an ice storm to keep up with it. Make sure that you leave those outs for yourself. We have a winter maintenance policy. I kind of robbed mine from Jim Dean in the town of Orangetown. We modified it to suit our town. It's available. If you want a template to start your own, you probably know, David, right? Does the local roads program have templates?
We have a couple of sample policies, one from the town of Unadilla and one from Yates County. I actually posted the links to them in our chat pod, or you can go on our website and search for it.
Yeah.
And if people have a policy they'd like to share, they think it's a good one, send it our way. We'll put it up there too. We'd love to share those kind of things.
And I'll share mine. I'll send ours over. And if you're not a big town, it may be all you need to do. And some people may have bare roads policies. They may be like a large county. They may think that's what they have to do to be to satisfy their constituents. It wasn't us. There just wasn't the funding to do it to that level. So I'm glad to see that a good share of people have at least the people that are responding have a winter maintenance policy. Good for you. And if you don't, if you're a part of that smaller group, I encourage you to do it. So dealing with customers and stakeholders, I talked about this a little bit earlier. Make sure that your interactions with the public are positive. You can diffuse situations. Not everybody understands what you do or why you do it. And that's kind of on us. We just do what we do. We don't necessarily make people aware. We don't educate them. We don't make them smarter about what we do. And if people question why you're doing things, it might be a good opportunity for you to try to educate them as to why you're doing what you're doing. Some people are some people. Some will not. It's not going to make any difference what you say in those situations. Say, well, at some point, I'm going to send you some information as to why we're going to do this, and just walk away. You don't get it to the point where it escalates to any kind of a heated verbal altercation. I had a person question why she wasn't able to get to the work for the first time in 18 years on time. And it was on my Audex, and I didn't respond right away. I waited till the next morning at 7 o'clock, and I called her home. And by the time I called her home the next morning, she says, before you even start, I just want you to know that my husband told me I had to apologize to you. Okay. I said, you're apologizing? Your husband's telling me you have to apologize. Yes. Some people, they get stuck in the snowstorm and it's somebody else's fault. Obviously, it wasn't our fault. We were on our way. We were actually there on the road when she was there, but she was in dropping her kids off to the babysitter, and they weren't aware she was stuck. So they went around, lifted the plowing wing, went around her and continued to plow the road. Well, when she went out to get in the car after having it idle there, she went to go and it wouldn't go. So it was our fault. Her husband allowed that it wasn't our fault, that it was her fault, and she changed her tune. But and I left that on my Audex for 2 years, just as a reminder of how people can be. Sometimes after they have a chance to cool down, it's a much better time to have the conversation. So keep that in mind. Training. Train your people well. Make them smart. Get them just as bright as you can get them. Use books and there's all kinds of things and DVDs and videos. The Cornell Local Rogues program has a huge lending library of DVDs to help train your people. All you got to do is request them. They'll send them to you. You just drop them in the mail and send them back to them. There's a wealth of information there and you should be doing this. I mean, and when you do the training, make sure you log those hours, because those are one of the things that get foiled if there's an incident. You know, why is this person? Did you train him to drive the snowplow? Did you train him to run the backhoe? So make sure that you log all those things. There's a wealth of it online. A lot of it's free. There's simulators. I know if you go to highway school or if you've been to highway school in the past, Alfred State College has simulators that they will bring it. They have in the past that are pretty lifelike. I'm telling you, you almost think that you're sitting in the seat of a loader or a bulldozer or a dozer. And there's a lot of companies that have these simulators, you know, in their showrooms so that you can try them. Classroom instruction. And that's kind of what you're doing today. Even though you're doing it behind a screen, you're kind of in my classroom today. There's a lot of classroom instruction that's provided by the Local Roads program. Send your people to it. Make them smarter. You know, somebody said, well, yeah, if I get them all smart and they'll leave. Well, here's the other side of it. What if you don't train them and they stay? There's no reason to have people around you that aren't good at what they do. I mean, if they leave, well, you did your best to make them better at what they did. And you may have to train another one. And I'll tell you right now, it's getting tougher and tougher to find those people. But smart people are better, and I will tell you that from experience. On the job training, make sure you have those tailgate talks. Make sure that you have that toolbox talk with people, and so that they understand. Have your senior people teach the younger people, teach the newer people. I don't necessarily say younger, but the newer people. Make sure that they understand. Send them on an excavator and have them go down there and move a pile of sand from one side to the other, then move it back again. Don't expect them to go out there with a that big excavator and start cleaning ditches and swinging over the top of a $140,000 or $240,000 truck and smash the sideboards off of them. Make sure that they're good at what they do before you put them in a real situation. In-house training, you can do lots of it, and you should be doing lots of it. Tailgate talks. Here's a question: how do you recruit new employees? Put that in the chat. How do you do that? Because it's a real issue right now, and I got to tell you, it's a lot of it has to do with, at least the way it looks to me, minimum wage hasn't helped anything. You know, I went through the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through the other day, and they're paying $16.87 an hour to pour coffee in a cup. And I saw the town of Hector the other day had an ad in the paper. They wanted to hire a new motor equipment operator with experience, and they're going to pay $18 an hour. Well, I don't know how difficult it's going to be. I got to say, it's going to probably be pretty difficult to have somebody go to work for the town of Hector. And don't get me wrong, the town of Hector is a wonderful place, they're great people. But to go over there and get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go plow snow for $18 an hour when they can go down to Dunkin' Donuts and pour coffee in a cup for almost $17 an hour, and they get paid at the end of every shift. So it's going to be a struggle. You know, there used to be a carrot that, the New York State retirement was a good thing, and now it's more like a 401k, and health insurance was always fully funded, and now it's new people are paying, a percentage of it. It depends on where you are and what the percentage is. But How do you do that? How do you recruit new employees? Did anybody answer that, David, in the Q&A?
I haven't seen anything on the poll everywhere. It looks like people have put it in, but it's not showing. I'm wondering if it's part of this new
Glitch?
improved poll
Yeah.
everywhere. Well, I figured that out, but I did see in the Q&A somebody just said they're just starting themselves. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Well, that's okay. I mean, and good for you. And it's a very rewarding career. I can tell you, I did it for a long, long time, and I enjoyed almost every minute of it. There were times when it was a bit of a struggle, especially in emergencies and big weather conditions. There were times when it wasn't as much fun. I had a guy get hurt quite bad one time on the job, and it was tough. It was tough to have happen on my watch. And make sure that when you hire new people, if you can find new people and hire new people, I will tell you that well-run departments and departments where employees feel appreciated tend to be better staffed. And I only know this from traveling across the state and teaching. If you treat your employees well and you show them how much you respect them, they tend to stay. If they like going to work in the morning, they're going to keep on doing it. And if they like doing it, they're going to tell other people to do the same thing. That would be my guess. I mean, if you have a better or some other way that you think may make a difference, please let us know. I'd like to know, because I'll put it in my workshop. I'd love to help people find all the people that they need.
Yeah, better than the note in the box that says town council kids who need a job.
Yeah, it's tough, and I get their end of it. I get the end of, the municipalities have to work within what they think the residents can afford. Lord knows right now everything has gone up exponentially. All the things that we spend money on to run a household have gone up. We want to see the taxes go up so that we can get those that other person or pay the people you have so they'll stay there. I don't know. It's a balancing act. It's not easy. It's certainly not easy for you, and it's not easy for the boards either. This is one of the reasons why I'm kind of glad that I don't do what you do right now, because this is probably one of the things that I see can be the most troubling, especially on the future horizon. So departmental procedures, make sure you have standard operating procedures for everything you do. And I would suggest that this probably not be one of them. Hook the ROPS on that backhoe to a crane and put them up there on top of the jackhammer that bridge abutment down. I got to tell you, I think this must be in some other country, because I can't imagine anybody from OSHA or PESH letting that go on. But everything that you do in your town, make sure you have a standard operating procedure, what you have to do, what PPE is required for that, what equipment are going to be used, all of the things that go along with that, and make sure your people are following those standard operating procedures. We don't need a bunch of cowboys doing what municipalities have to do. Make sure that they understand it, make sure they're doing it as they should, and make sure that whoever is supervising them, whether it be the superintendent or a foreman or a deputy, make sure that they're aware of what those are and make sure that the guys are following those. Because not only is it a source of liability, but it's one of the reasons why people get hurt doing what they do. This is on Cornell campus over there. I'm sure everyone that's on this webinar can see multiple things that are wrong. There's no trench box. The flagger out there in the street, he's got a hard hat on, but he has no reflective vest. This is a guy standing a foot from the edge of that with a 10-foot excavation and that guy down there. There's just so many things that are bad here. Make sure you don't let this kind of stuff go on in your department. This picture is a fellow, as it turns out, he's a fellow from down in Sullivan County that I met last year when I was teaching running your highway department. He says, "That's me." I says, "Oh my God, it is you." Yeah, this is the reason why we wear PPE. He walked away from that, went home to his family. If he hadn't had that hard hat on, it probably would have been a much different situation. Make sure they wear the stuff. Do what you have to do to encourage them to wear the stuff. Not encourage them, and I don't want to say force, but some people just have a really tough time having people tell them what to do. But you got to understand, it may be the kind of thing that saves their lives. And in this situation, I'm pretty sure that it did. Be aware of your surroundings. These guys, they got nice vests on, no hard hats, and two of them have their back to where all of this big rock fall came from. Just think about what you're doing and where you're doing it at. I mean, just be smart about it. Everybody wants to go home to their family at the end of the shift. Emergencies. You're going to deal with them. I don't care where you are or what municipality you are, you're going to deal with emergencies. This one up here where you see this rainfall, my daughter and son-in-law live in Binghamton. It was bad. It was a very bad situation. We had it in our town, 3.5 inches of rain in 40 minutes. There's no way you can plan for that kind of an event. Our soil and water guy said, well, it's a 500-year event. And that was on a Saturday. And the next Sunday, we got 2.75 inches of rain in 25 minutes. And he says, well, that's a 500-year event. I said, so are we good for 1,000 years now? Things are changing. Weather patterns are changing. Will they change back? Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. I don't have the answers to those things. I know there's a ton of debate in this country about those sort of things, but do the best you can to prepare for them. You're never going to prepare for all of them. So do you have an emergency response plan? I would assume that you have to. I mean, I know that it's required that you have one. Doesn't necessarily mean that everybody does. Everybody's supposed to fill out a 284 agreement, and you would be surprised at how many municipalities I go to that have never even heard of it. Make sure that you have an emergency response plan. Know your role in that. If you're a superintendent, what are you responsible for? What is the supervisor responsible for? What is the county superintendent responsible for? What is emergency response or emergency management responsible for? Somebody put down no. You need to know. These are things that you need. What are your employees responsible to do in an emergency? Make sure that stuff is spelled out. So when that bad thing happens, you know exactly what your role is. I mean, when we had to close our roads during those flooding events, I knew that I couldn't close those roads long term. I knew I didn't have the legal authority to do that. I call up, I get on the phone, I says, Marvin, I says, we've got 7 roads that are impassable. We have to close them. Okay, tell me what you need me to do. I said, well, you have to notify the emergency management that we're going to close the roads. You have to make an official declaration that they're closed. I'll keep you posted. And he did it. And that's what you have to do, because in the event of something going bad, at least we followed the chain of command and those kind of things. Doesn't make the event any better, but at least you know. So
I put a sample policy link in the chat pod for folks. So, and it's
there you go.
To move on, Marty. We're done with our hour just about.
Yeah. So this is what I teach running your highway department across the state. If you're new and you really want to learn the gist of what we do or what you do in detail, the next time it comes to your area, I would suggest you take it. Get on board with it. It'll make your life easier. I'm going to try to help you avoid the pitfalls of it and make your life better. And if you're new to it, congratulations on your new position. And I've walked in your shoes, so I know what it feels like. Good luck with that.
I put a link to the workshop manual in the chat pod as well.
Yeah, and if you haven't gone to it and you would like the workshop manual, you notify them at the local roads program, and they'll put that in a wrapper and they'll send it to you, and you can read it. And most of that stuff is in there. There's links to all kinds of things that'll help you with budgeting and managing and and planning, do that. Do it today. And keep good records. It's imperative. So this is a list of the upcoming webinars we're going to have that are going to be involved in. And I'd like to thank you guys for taking the hour out of the day to listen to me rattle on. And good luck with what you do in the coming year, and Happy New Year to all of you.
Thanks, Marty. Nice job.
Thank you, David.
Talk to
Thank you,
later.
guys. Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everybody. We'll send a cert out to everybody, and we'll go from there. Thanks, folks.